Today I'll be giving you my thoughts and experiences on 1080p 240Hz at 24 inches versus 1440p 144Hz at 27 inches. Hopefully this will help you out in deciding which type of monitor is best for you. And I decided on these resolutions because they seem to be the golden standard for each screen size. The monitors I'm going to be using in the video today are the Alienware AW2521HF versus the Dell S2716DG. Now what I mean by the golden standard for each screen size is that 1080p at 27 inches, the pixel density is honestly not that high, so if you sit close to your monitor like me, like 1.5 feet away, it just doesn't look as clear and crisp. 1440p at 24 inches does look nice, but there's not too much of a difference in terms of 24-inch 1080p versus 1440p, but you are causing your GPU to work a lot harder, so I feel like it's not worth the effort. Alright, so a lot of people are wondering if you're even able to tell the difference between 240Hz and 144Hz, and from my personal experience that used to doubt it if there was one, I'd say yes, there is a difference. If you mostly play competitive shooters and have a good feel of the game through time, jumping to 240Hz you'll notice moving around and just aiming will feel a little bit smoother. It's a bit hard to describe, but after using 240Hz and going back to 144Hz, you start to notice that moving around in 144Hz feels a little bit more staticky. Now don't get me wrong, if you're jumping up from 60Hz, then 144Hz will definitely feel like butter, and it still does, but after using it for a long time and jumping to 240Hz, you realize there's something even smoother. So if I had to make a comparison, I'd say 240Hz is kind of like creamy, skippy peanut butter. 144Hz is still creamy peanut butter, but it has a little chunks of peanuts spread throughout it. And 60Hz is just straight up chunky peanut butter, so if you even play any type of shooters, you're just doing a disservice to yourself. Alright, so if you're going for a 240Hz monitor, you also just want to make sure that your PC is able to push out at least 240 frames per second, or else you're just basically wasting those unused frames. Of course, the only games that would really benefit from these types of monitors and be able to push these frame rates are just esport titles, such as CSGO, Valorant, and Overwatch. So the specs in my computer are a Ryzen 7 3700X, 32GB of 3200 RAM, and a GTX 1080. So I would hover anywhere between 180 to 300 frames in Valorant, depending on what's happening in the game. And for these types of games, you want to make sure you have a decent CPU because it's a lot more CPU dependent than GPU. So in terms of 1440p at 144Hz, the benefit of this monitor is basically everything else besides competitive esports titles. Browsing the web and multitasking is just a lot easier, and you still get that fluid experience because it is at 144Hz compared to 60Hz. In programs, you're able to see more of your toolbars and have more windows open. Of course, the increased resolution also makes videos and movies a more pleasant experience. So the 1440p resolution to 1080p does require a heftier GPU, but it's not as taxing as making a jump from 1440p to 4K. Games do look a lot nicer and they're slightly more immersive due to the larger screen size, so if you're into story games or AAA titles, then you would definitely benefit more with a higher resolution monitor. One drawback I found for the 240Hz monitor is that edges of images were a bit blurry. It's kind of hard to describe, but when you get the faster response time of the monitor, you sort of see like a hazy outline around all of my images that took a little bit to get used to, but after a while you just don't notice it anymore. But if you're playing a game like Apex Legends, I feel like the increased resolution actually has a benefit because I feel like it's a lot easier to spot enemies in the distance. When I was on the 240Hz monitor, it was a little bit blurry and it was kind of hard to tell where enemies were in the distance. So another thing to consider is if you have a dual monitor setup, what resolution that screen is using. So my second monitor is a 24-inch 1080p, and when I was using it alongside the 1440p monitor, every time I would drag a window over from one monitor to the other, I had to resize the window, which isn't a huge deal, but it can get a little annoying at times. So there are monitors nowadays such as the Aorus FI27Q-X27 that are 1440p and 240Hz, which is the best of both worlds honestly, but this screen technology is kind of new, so the prices for these monitors are kind of high. Like that one is coming in at $700. So if you're just trying to save some cash, then I would still just consider between 1080p 240Hz versus 144Hz 1440p. So overall, if you're mainly playing esports titles and value every competitive edge that you can get, then I would definitely recommend 240Hz 1080p. But if you still want like a competitive advantage in this type of games, but also take advantage of the story mode games or use your monitor for other tasks, then I'd definitely say 1440p 144Hz is the way to go. Anyways, I hope this video helps you out in your purchasing decision, and then until next time, peace.